My name is Natalie Watson and I'm the publishing editor of the Pastoral Review. This evening's event is sponsored by Fuller's Finer Furniture, who are bespoke quality church furniture makers, and also by Messenger Publications and by DM Music, who are the leading installer of sound and audiovisual systems in UK churches and cathedrals. This evening, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Father Seán McDonagh, with us from Ireland. Father Seán is a Columban priest and eco-activist and theologian. Father Seán studied anthropology and linguistics, as well as theology, and spent a number of years working as a missionary in the Philippines. Since the mid-1980s, Father Seán has been writing and speaking about the importance of the connection between ecology and theology, and he was one of the first in the Catholic Church to do so. He later contributed to some of the early draftings of what became Laudato Si, and was actively involved in promoting the message of care for our common home. In 2021, Father Seán published a book that attracted my attention and that I very much enjoyed reading, Robots, Ethics and the Future of Jobs, which challenges Christian theologians to an urgent response to the accelerating pace of technological change and its potential consequences. So this evening, robots, drones and smart churches, Catholic social teaching and the artificial intelligence revolution. Thank you very much, Father Seán. Over to you.
Natalie, thank you very much, and would like to thank all the people who are listening in tonight. As you rightly said, I'm a Columban missionary, and basically I worked in the Philippines from 1969 onwards. My first couple of years there was a lot of injustice with President Marcos and all of that, and the church and missionaries were very much involved in that. But then in 1980, I was asked to work among a tribal group of people called the Tibole, and there I basically saw the destruction of the tropical forest. So it kind of changed my life very much, and I began to then talk about issues like ecology. My first book was The Care for the Earth, A Call to a New Theology. When I was a student here, we had a Columban from New Zealand, Cyril Halley, and he always was saying the church should be looking out to see what kind of things are coming down the track so that we can respond to them. So about 6 years ago, I read a paper by Benedict Frey and Michael Osborne of Oxford University, talking about the impact of artificial intelligence on jobs in the future. That within a period of maybe just 25 years, only 50% of people will have permanent jobs. So what kind of society is that going to be? And that's what got me interested in this whole area of ecology, or of artificial intelligence, robots, and the future of jobs. So I'd like to start now at slide number 1. No, could we go back a little bit before that? Basically, I start the book by saying, when I was in Lake Cebu, to call my mother, I had to spend 6 hours in a bus, going from the Wally World over to Davao City, because that was the only place where there was an international line at that time. So you spend 6 or 7 hours, depending, the bus might break down. And eventually when you get over there, you got 10 minutes to speak to my parents. Very often the call broke down and it was very expensive. Then I'd stay with a missionary group and come back to Lake Cebu the following day. Now that's extraordinary. At this time, I can call Lake Cebu regularly. So these are extraordinary changes that have taken place in our time. The next slide, please. So one of the things we have to remember is the extraordinary changes. One of the things when you're talking about computers, right from the 1970s, is Moore's Law. We double our digital capacity every 3 to 4 or 5 years. So that means in a period of even 20 years, enormous changes are taking place. Now, some of these changes are good. The next slide, please. For example, in chapter 6, I talk about AI and medicine. And I give the example, for example, in Holland, or in Denmark, if somebody calls in to an area, first of all, he talks to a doctor, but he also does an AI machine that understands what he's saying, the way he talks and all of that, so that they will understand whether he's going to get a heart attack or not. And this particular machine is 93% of times, they will actually tell the person whether he's going to have a heart attack or not. So that's a huge change in medicine. The next slide, please. We'll go on to the next one. And next one particularly is on in the area of eyesight. Next, could I have the next slide, please? So we go on to the next slide, please. So they examine his words, the tone of these words, the parents may use to express what is happening to them. Next slide, please. So that tells you whether it's going to have cardiac arrest, and in 93% the cases are solved. And in many ways, the machine has greater power than many doctors have to do that. The next slide, please. Well, I give the example of eye surgery here. And I give the example that, for example, cataract operations, that these new technologies are better than almost any eye surgeon at the moment.